Hey y'all, Tater and I are in Dark Canyon today, and we're going to tell you the story about the Crowder family. There's Tater. Say hi, Tater. She won't say hi. Okay. Now, I'm going to say a few things before I get started here. This video should have been probably made first. I did the Magner families first. But this one is going to be a little different because the Crowder family is the one family that got me interested in the flood. So, and there's a reason for that, and I'm going to go into that. So because nobody in the Crowder family who was home that night survived, there's no official record of what happened, exactly what happened to them that night. Obviously they drowned, but it's not like the Magners, where Merlin Magner wrote a book about her experience and what happened. This one is going to be more of a mediumship channeling from Dr. Crowder. So I just want to say, first of all, that I acknowledge that there's a lot of different religious beliefs and stuff out there, and I don't mean to offend anybody that may come across this video. Say, for instance, somebody in the Crowder family comes across this video, and I just want to say this is made out of love and respect for their family members. And I don't want them to think that their dad and brothers are not at peace or anything like that, because it's not true. They are. So please don't be offended. So I'm going to tell you all how I got hooked up with the Crowders. So way back in 2014, I was going through a hard time in my life, and with my job and everything, and I was freaking out. I didn't know what the future held for me, and so I went to different mediums, because I've always been a very spiritual person anyway. I believed in paranormal stuff, and so I went to a few different mediums and asked for advice. And one thing that all of them said, even despite not knowing each other or anything, they all said that I had gifts as well, and that I'm an empathic medium. And so I thought, okay, cool. It's around that time that I met my spirit guide and started communicating with her. And over the years following that, I was kind of depressed, and I've always had social anxiety, and I just didn't know how to connect with people. I had this gift, supposedly, and I didn't know what to do with them. Like, I was just existing. I didn't have any purpose in life. So fast forward to about 2021, and I was scrolling through Facebook one day, and I'm a member of this one group called South Dakota History, and they have pictures of past events that happened in South Dakota. And I came across these pictures that were taken of some ruins of some houses that were down in Brayburn Dog Park. Brayburn Dog Park used to be called the Brayburn Addition, and about 20 families lived there during the flood. Not a whole lot of them made it out alive. That whole neighborhood was decimated pretty much. And someone had a house by the creek, and there was some rock walls and steps, and there was part of a chimney that was left from one of these houses, and they had pictures all over there. And for some reason, I got really interested in this. I had felt like a compulsion. I had to seek out where these exactly were. I didn't know what or why. I just had to find them. So the person who had taken these pics really didn't say where in the dog park these were. And so I spent about a month that summer, every weekend, looking behind the fish hatchery, and Tater's getting antsy. Everywhere, and I couldn't find them. And so finally I lined up some of the pictures with the background in Google Earth, and I finally figured out where they possibly were. So my late dog and I, Lucy, we finally found them one weekend, and I was so excited. And I took pictures and everything, and I was thrilled that I found them. And went home that night and was scrolling through the pictures, and all of a sudden my spirit guide, whom I'll call Elle, she popped in beside me, and she was like, you know, you have flood spirits that have been hanging around you for years. Every time you go down to Canyon Lake or that area, they follow you around. They're trying to get your attention. And there's one man in particular that has been trying to get your attention. And yeah, you need to help him. And first of all, I was like, why didn't you tell me this years ago? Like, hello. But she was like, you have to find out things on your own, because how are you going to use your gifts if you don't? If I tell you all the answers beforehand, whatever. So she said, I will give you an image of this man. I won't give you any more details on that. So she sent me this image of this man. He was middle-aged. He was wearing like a plaid. Sorry, there's a car. Oh. He was wearing like a plaid sports coat, like was popular in the 70s. And he looked like he was wearing dark rimmed glasses. And I went to the library website where they have pics of some of the flood victims, and I was hoping that I could find him. And sure enough, I was scrolling through and found this guy. And his name was Dr. Richard Crowder. And he even had the dark rimmed glasses that was stuck in his jacket pocket. So I was like, oh cool, this is him. Okay, and as soon as I realized it was him, he popped in and we started a conversation. So he told me he'd known me since I was little. Now my grandparents, my dad's parents, had a house on a hill here on the south side of town, and they were here for the flood. But every time I'd come and visit, I didn't grow up here in Rapid. Every time we'd come to visit when I was little, they would usually take me to Canyon Lake to feed the ducks. And that's when, I'm sorry, am I boring you? That's when he noticed me, first off. And he said that this little girl, turned out to be me, had this really special glow about her. And he just knew there was something different because all the other living people didn't look like me. So his spirit guide told him, that's Kenna, and she will grow up someday and she'll help you on your mission. So I was like, what's your mission? And he says, I stayed behind to help the other flood victims. I didn't cross over. And I've been helping some of them since it happened. And some of them just refused to go through the light. And I need your help to help them go through the light. Now, the reason he stayed behind, he said, was because he thought God was mad at him for not taking him into heaven right away. He said he was a terrible father. And he thought because he had been such a terrible father that God was mad at him. And maybe by staying behind and helping the other flood victims, he would get into heaven. And I was like, well, that ain't true. I mean, anyway, we've had lots of talks with this. And he just, he's fine now, but he wasn't for a long time. Anyway, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you the story. We're going to go up to his house and everything. I'll tell you the story. So, I just want to say again, if the Crowder family ever comes across this video, and this will probably go for all these videos on the flood that I'm doing that have mediumship elements. If any family members come across this, I just want to make it clear that I'm not being disrespectful. I do realize that there are lots of religious beliefs out there that don't like this kind of stuff and don't believe in it. But this is my story too, not just flood victims. Please don't be offended. This is my story, and this is their story. So let's tell it. All right, here we are. Down the road here is the Crowder place. Now, most of the people that live here now, they rebuilt their houses. Obviously, they had to do it up on the cliffs here. You can see all these houses here were not here back then. This is a gorgeous place to grow up, though. I would love to have a house here, but I ain't got that kind of money. Dr. Crowder would kill me too if I ever lived by the creek. He said Can't believe people are even this close to the creek. He doesn't like that. So, on that night, well, let's go back to the day. That day, as told to me by Dr. Crowder, one of his sons, I believe it was Matthew, he was 14. He had a baseball game that day. And I don't know about the other son, Daniel, if he had a baseball game that day as well, but Mrs. Crowder and the two youngest children, they decided to go visit some family out of town that weekend. So they were not home. And that's probably a good thing, because the whole family would have been wiped out probably. So the boys, two older boys, Daniel 16, Matthew 14, they got home that night. Of course, it started to rain pretty bad. Don't know what Dr. Crowder was doing that day, but he was home and he was monitoring the storm. He said that it started to get really scary, and they debated, him and the boys, should we get out of here? And they finally decided, yeah, we should probably get the hell out of here. So he told the boys, start packing up the cars. We're going to get to higher ground. And well, that's what they were doing. Running back and forth, grabbing material possessions, trying to pack up the cars and get out of town. Get to higher ground, I should say. So, we're going to take you up here in just a bit and show you the old Crowder property. Now, somebody does live there now. And Dr. Crowder, he's full of guilt. He said, if we'd only stayed on the upper part of the house, maybe get on the roof or something, that they probably would have lived. That was another thing that guilt, he felt responsible for what happened. And he felt like that was another thing that God probably was mad at him for. He should have known that, he should have known that they would have survived if they stayed, and instead of foolishly taking the time to pack up their material possessions. So I've had a lot of conversations with him over the past few years. That's ridiculous. You shouldn't have guilt over that. And we worked through a lot of this stuff. Okay. You can kind of see where the house is. Yeah, it's over here. I don't want to be a creeper, because people do live here, like I said. some of these houses. He's told me, never build a house by the creek, Kenna. And I said, do I look like a millionaire? These houses are out of my price range. He said, well, you might marry a rich man someday. Maybe you'll want a house by the creek. And I said, you are crazy. I mean, it would be nice if I married a rich man, but anyway. Yeah, Dr. Crowder is very fatherly. He's known me since I was little, as I said. And he's seen me over the years at Canyon Lake. But he never followed me home until I knew about him. Because that's weird. If an old man, well, I should say an older man, followed a young woman home, he just thought that was pretty creepy if he didn't have permission. So he waited 49 years for me to finally realize that he was around. Okay. I believe we're coming up here. Oh yes, the house is over here, not over there. I forgot. Okay. So you can kind of see through the trees where it's at. Let me try to get up on this other side. Gotta keep Tater on the leash today because this narrow road has a lot of curves and people just come racing around. So she's not happy she's on the leash, but she'll have to get over it. Okay, well, here's a bridge, a walking bridge. Now, I don't know where their cars were parked that night. Might have been up on that parking lot right there, or they might have been down here. Nevertheless, the boys were swept off into the water. Dr. Crowder saw this and jumped in after him. He thought he could save him, but something hit him in the side of his head. And he very quickly realized, now he was a neurosurgeon, so he knew that he was paralyzed. Couldn't feel anything below about his shoulder level. Yeah, and so his last conscious moments were just of him flailing in the water, not being able to move his arms or legs, not being able to save himself or his sons. And unfortunately, that's where he faded to black, if you will. Better look at the house. So I will be telling you, going over to the cemetery and telling you the rest of the story. We're gonna go visit their graves. View Cemetery. Here's Mr. Dr. Richard Crowder. Here's Danny. And Matthew. Okay. So, after everything faded to black for Dr. Crowder, he seemingly woke up. He thought it was a bad dream at first. And he said he felt like he was sitting in what looked like a field. And he noticed some men in what looked like army gear pulling stuff out of a muddy hole. And he was very confused. He didn't know what happened between his last conscious moments and to where he found himself now. And so he decided to walk over to these men and see what the heck they were doing. Well, they had bulldozers and what do you call those things? Earth movers or whatever. They were pulling junk out of this hole, like pieces of debris. And he was trying to ask these guys what the heck were they doing, where was he, what's going on. Nobody was answering him. And finally he looks a little closer and he sees a body buried deep in the mud, and these men, he could tell, could not see this body. So he goes over a little closer and he takes a good look, and he figures out, oh my God, that's me. That's my body. And he's very shocked, of course. So now he finally realizes, oh my gosh, they can't see me or hear me because I'm dead. And as soon as he thinks this, he's like, oh my gosh, where are my boys? Well, at that moment, he hears Danny and Matt run up to him, screaming and crying. They're hysterical. They're like, please, Dad, what's going on? Is this a bad dream? Wake us up, please, Dad. What's going on, you know? He says, boys, I don't think we made it. I think we drowned. And as soon as he gets reunited with his boys, he starts to notice other people. And when he says people, he's kind of saying, you could tell that they weren't looking like the other, like the guys that were pulling out the debris and stuff. He noticed they looked different, and he quickly realized that these were also the newly dead. And now Dr. Crowder was a neurosurgeon, and he was pretty prominent in this city. Lots of people knew him. The family was pretty prominent. And, it's because Rapid was half the size in 1972 than it is now. So it was kind of a small town, if you will. 40,000 people estimated. Now it's about twice that. And he says he recognizes them, and they're also crying, saying, Dr. Crowder, what happened? I went to bed. I just thought it was a bad storm. I just went to bed, and now I find myself here. What's going on? And he says, I'm sorry, guys. We're all dead. And of course, they got very hysterical. Everybody's hysterical. He's trying to calm them down. And he quickly realizes, well, maybe because I'm here and not in heaven, maybe I have to stay behind here and help everybody. Maybe that's what God wants me to do. And so that is what he did for 49 years until he met me. Or I should say, until I realized he was around. And that's why he wanted to get my attention, because he needed my help. And he needed somebody living to help him move these people on, because he'd been trying for years. Now, when I say years, I mean Earth years, because the dead do not have time like we do here on Earth. 49 years to them is like 49 seconds. And that's why a lot of these people who died in the flood do not know they're dead, or they refuse to believe they're dead. And he had been dealing with this all those years, trying to help some of them move on. Now, he did help a lot of people move on, but there's been some stubborn ones and some that need a little extra help, and that's where I came in. So 2021 was the beginning of my spiritual awakening, because of Dr. Crowder contacting me, getting my attention through Facebook. Believe it or not, my spirit guide helped him with technology by me finding those ruins through Facebook. That was him, with the help of my spirit guide, reaching out to me and saying, hey, I'm here, I need your help. So, what I want to make clear is that, again, Dr. Crowder, Danny, and Matt are not stuck. They are not in despair. They are not in denial. They are at peace. And it's their choice to come back to the living world and to help others. And especially Dr. Crowder. Now, the boys said they hung around. They hung around their dad until their mother passed in 1998, and I'll be showing her gravestone here in a bit. Their mother passed, and so they decided to join her and their other brother, Jeff, who died a couple months before the flood. So they joined them, and they were trying to get Dr. Crowder to go through the light as well. But Dr. Crowder was very stubborn, and he had his hang-ups, especially with the way he felt he treated his son Daniel. Daniel is, or was, I think he still is actually. He was very headstrong, very mischievous. Dr. Crowder had a little issue with Daniel, more so than his other kids. And he'd actually sent Danny to a military school about a year before the flood. And that was very traumatic for Danny. And it didn't seem to help the situation. Dr. Crowder felt that Danny was getting into too much trouble, running around the crowd, being disrespectful, smoking pot with his friends, and so he decided to send him to military school. And so the two had a very contentious relationship. Dr. Crowder blamed himself after death. Maybe that's why God doesn't like me, because I treated my kid like poop. So like I said, we've worked through those issues. And now, we all good. We are still working with some flood victims. Now my Beagle mix, Lucy, passed a year ago. And she actually, about the year before her death, she was actually helping me with these flood victims, much in the way that Dr. Crowder had helped. She would bring me somebody from the flood. She would say, "Hey Mom, this person would like their story told." So I've been doing stories, especially on TikTok, about the flood, about flood victims. So yeah, that's their story. So now I'm going to take you over here. A lot of the flood victims here are buried right in this section, not just the Crowder family. Here is Audrey Crowder. Very nice lady, may I say. She was a nurse back in the day. And here is Jeffrey. He's very mischievous, cute little kid. But yeah, that's another issue that Dr. Crowder had. So that's another issue that Dr. Crowder had. He felt he'd failed his wife as well, because he left her a widow with 2 small kids to raise on her own, and she lost her husband and her 3 eldest children in a span of 3 months, and he felt tremendous guilt over that. I should also mention Matthew's body was never found. So his family buried an empty coffin. Danny's body was found pretty much right away, I think. It took a lot longer for them to find Doc. And let me tell you, he showed me a picture of his corpse, and I was like, what the heck? Why would you do that? But I will spare you the details. He was identified only by a ring on his hand that he wore. So you can imagine what that looked like. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. Alright, that's the story. How I got involved in the flood. And rest in peace to the Crowders.